True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and I am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in heaven and in earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. It was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture. A pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing! But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, and with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. Every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. Then the dark lantern, all closed that no light shone out. I began to enter the room. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I entered. I moved slowly, very, very slowly. Then, when I was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously. And a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone and inquiring, "How did you pass the night?" I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in entering the room. I felt the extent of my own powers to think that there I was entered, little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea. He moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled, and sprang up. "Who's there?" Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with a thick darkness, so I knew that he could not see me. I kept quite still and said nothing. For a long time, I did not move a muscle. And in the meantime, I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise. He had been saying to himself,
"It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor. It is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp."
Yes, he's been trying to comfort himself, but all in vain. All in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. It was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel my presence within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until at length a simple dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot from out the crevice and fell full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. Have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over acuteness of the sense? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. But even yet I refrained and kept quite still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. I thought the heart must have burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. I threw open the lantern. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes, There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If still you think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then left no stain of any kind. I left no blood spot whatever. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the board so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bells sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered a man who introduced himself with perfect suavity.
I am an officer of the police. A shriek has been heard by a neighbor during the night, and suspicion of foul play has been aroused.
That shriek was my own in a dream.
And I have been deputed to search the premises.
You are welcome to search. Search well. I smiled, for what had I to fear? Took my visitor all over the house. I led him at length to the old man's chamber and told him, the old man is absent in the country. I showed him his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought him a chair and desired him here to rest from his fatigue, while I, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officer was satisfied. My manner had convinced him. I was singularly at ease. He sat and we chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished him gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still he sat. The ringing became more distinct, it continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definiteness, until, at length, I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt, I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would he not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, but the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the man sat there pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible he heard not? Almighty God, no, no, he heard! He suspected, he knew! He was making a mockery of my horror! This I thought, and this I think, but anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear this hypocritical smile no longer. I felt that I must scream or die, and now again, hark! Louder, 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 louder! Finally I shrieked! Villain! Dissemble no more! I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here, it is the beating of his hideous heart. Why will you say that I am mad? Now that you've heard the whole story, how then am I mad?